Today, we're going to talk about a topic that's not easy to discuss but is incredibly important to understand: childhood trauma and how it can lead to a life of crime, depression and suicide. First, let's define what we mean by childhood trauma. Childhood trauma is any experience that a child goes through that is physically, emotionally, or psychologically harmful. This can include abuse, neglect, witnessing violence, experiencing a natural disaster, or even just growing up in a chaotic environment. When a child experiences trauma, it can have a significant impact on their brain development and functioning. Specifically, it can lead to changes in the structure and function of certain brain regions that are involved in emotional processing and regulation. These changes can make it more difficult for individuals who have experienced childhood trauma to regulate their emotions and respond to stress in healthy ways. Research has consistently shown that individuals who have experienced childhood trauma are at an increased risk of developing depression later in life. For example, a study published in the journal JAMA Psychiatry found that individuals who had experienced physical or sexual abuse in childhood were significantly more likely to experience depression as adults than those who had not experienced abuse. Another study, published in the journal Development and Psychopathology, found that individuals who had experienced emotional abuse or neglect in childhood were more likely to have negative views of themselves and to experience depression and anxiety as young adults. Trauma can impair an individual's ability to regulate emotions, cope with stress, and develop healthy relationships. It can also lead to feelings of worthlessness, hopelessness, and disconnection from others and the world around them. These factors can contribute to suicidal thoughts and behavior. Research has consistently shown a strong association between childhood trauma and an increased risk of suicidal behavior. For example, a study published in the Journal of Traumatic Stress found that individuals who experienced childhood sexual abuse were over 3 times more likely to report a history of suicide attempts compared to those who did not experience sexual abuse. Another study published in the Journal of Clinical Psychiatry found that individuals who experienced childhood emotional abuse were more likely to attempt suicide, even after controlling for factors such as depression and anxiety. Moreover, research has shown that the impact of childhood trauma on suicide risk can be persistent over time. A study published in the Archives of Suicide Research found that individuals who experienced childhood trauma had a significantly increased risk of suicidal behavior, even after accounting for other risk factors such as psychiatric disorders, substance abuse, and stressful life events. Childhood trauma can have a profound impact on an individual's life trajectory, and it has been linked to an increased risk of engaging in criminal behavior. Research has shown that the impact of childhood trauma on criminal behavior can be persistent over time. A study published in the journal Criminal Justice and Behavior found that individuals who experienced childhood abuse or neglect were more likely to engage in criminal behavior as adults, and that this relationship was mediated by a range of factors such as emotional dysregulation and poor social support. Many people who end up in prison have experienced some form of trauma in their childhood. This is not to say that everyone who experiences trauma will turn to crime, but it does increase the risk. So, what can we do about this? Is there a way to liberate ourselves from the effects of childhood trauma? The answer is yes. The first step is to understand that you are not your trauma. You are not defined by what happened to you in the past. You are a complex and unique individual with the power to create your own future. When we identify too strongly with our physical body or our thoughts and emotions, it can be easy to become stuck in negative patterns and beliefs that can perpetuate our trauma. By recognizing that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, we can begin to detach from these limiting beliefs and identify with something greater than ourselves. One way to do this is by connecting with your higher self. Your higher self is the part of you that is connected to something greater than yourself. It's the part of you that knows that you are more than just your body, thoughts, and emotions. The concept of the higher self is about recognizing that we are not limited to our physical bodies or our thoughts and emotions. We are consciousness and awareness, capable of tapping into something greater than ourselves and experiencing a deeper sense of connection and fulfillment in our lives. By cultivating a connection to our higher selves, we can begin to live more fully and authentically, and move beyond the limitations of our past experiences and conditioning. Connecting with your higher self can help you to see your trauma in a different light. You can begin to understand that the trauma was not your fault and that it does not define you. You can begin to see yourself as strong, resilient and limitless, who has the power to overcome anything. It's important to note that while understanding that you are not your body, thoughts, or emotions and that you are a spiritual being having a human experience can be a helpful perspective in the healing process, it is not a cure-all solution for liberating oneself from childhood trauma. Trauma can have a deep and lasting impact on an individual's life, and it often requires a comprehensive approach to healing that may include therapy, support groups, medication, and other forms of self-care. In conclusion, childhood trauma can have long-lasting effects on a person's mental and emotional well-being, which can lead to criminal behavior, depression and suicide. However, it's important to understand that you are not your trauma. You are a complex and unique individual with the power to create your own future. By connecting with your higher self and seeking help, you can liberate yourself from the effects of childhood trauma and live a fulfilling and happy life.